Hi friends, welcome back to Two Peas in the Kitchen.
So today we have made one of our favorite appetizers. It is this pull-apart challah. We've done it with a spinach artichoke dip. You can see we took a bite out of it.
We couldn't
because
resist.
We couldn't resist. It's so delicious. But we wanted to start out at the beginning to show you what the end result is. It's absolutely delicious. The challah is a recipe that comes from a cookbook that we love called Modern Jewish Baker. The dip is just a dip recipe that we've come up with that we really love. And you can make this challah roll with the challah bowls around it with any dip in the middle. Any dip that you bake can go right in the middle of this challah, and we can't wait to show you how to do it.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to proof our yeast. So we have in this little bowl here 14 grams of yeast, and I'm just going to put it in this porcelain bowl in here. Now with yeast, this is really important. Before you use it, check that expiration date. We both actually just made bread on our own accord, and our loaves came out flat. It was still delicious. So check the expiration date and make sure you're still within the expiration date before you use it. And I'll teach you a couple tricks so that you know if it's still good. Next, we're going to go ahead and add about half a teaspoon of white table sugar. This helps to activate the yeast. It's about 2 grams of sugar. So we prefer to use everything by weight if you can. So the yeast is 14 grams of yeast, or approximately 1.5 tablespoons. Now we're going to go ahead and add our sugar. And then lastly, we're going to add 290 grams of lukewarm water. Just, warm to the touch. It doesn't have to be a specific temperature. If you don't have a scale, it's about 1.25 cups. And I'm just going to pour that right here in this bowl. And then I'm just going to use a fork to give it a little stir. And this is going to sit just on your kitchen counter for about 10 minutes. And at that point, your yeast should be frothy. It should look like a cappuccino on top. It's what I like to tell people. If it's not foamy and frothy on top, your yeast is probably bad and you may want to start with a fresh batch. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes and look how frothy this is. Like I mentioned before, like a cappuccino. If you see this, you know your yeast is still good. So check that expiration date, make sure you're well within. If you get close to the expiration date, I would just get a new fresh batch.
Okay, so we're ready to get started on our challah dough. I'm going to be using a countertop mixer to do the first part of this. So this is the bowl that goes with the mixer that I'm going to start mixing in here. The first thing that I have here is I have my dry ingredients, and I've already measured them, and I'm going to give you the weights for these measurements and also the cup measurements in case you don't have a scale, although you really should get a scale if you're going to make bread. The first thing that we have in this bowl, this is 620 grams. This is organic bread flour. That's approximately 5 cups of flour if you don't have a scale. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is just a cup measurer or whatever you have to measure it. I'm going to put about 1 cup of the flour. This does not have to be exact. Only the measurement of the total flour that's going in the bread has to be exact. I'm going to put about 1 cup of the flour into the bowl that I'm going to put into my stand mixer. In addition to that, I have 130 grams. This is just white table sugar. It's about 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm going to go ahead and put that in with the flour. I'm also going to add 9 grams. This is table salt, not kosher salt. That's about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So that's going to go in there too. And I'm going to go ahead and this is our yeast mixture right here. So that is going to go into our flour mixture. And I'm always pretty careful to just get everything out of the bowl. There might be some yeast hanging out in the bowl. So we'll get that emptied. And then I have 50 grams. This is avocado oil. You could use any kind of vegetable oil that you want. We like to use avocado oil. It's a pretty neutral oil. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. It doesn't alter the flavor of the challah. So that's about 1/4 cup if you don't have a scale to measure it. Now that I have all that in there, I'm going to start at first with the whisk attachment to my countertop mixer. Don't worry if you don't have a countertop mixer. You can have this all in your bowl and you can mix it all together with just a regular old whisk and a lot of strength in your arm. Okay, so with the whisk attachment on here, just going to incorporate all of those ingredients together. I just have it on a low speed and I'm just going to let that mix for up to a minute, just kind of let it all incorporate. You don't want to do it too fast, but this does make it a lot easier. Again, if you don't have a countertop mixer, it's no big deal. You can do this in a big bowl with a whisk and your strong arm. So next, I have 2 eggs here that I've beaten a little bit with a fork in a bowl. I'm going to go ahead and add those. And in addition to that, I'm going to add another kind of heaping cup of my flour right into the bowl. And again, I'm going to keep the whisk attachment on at this point. We're going to switch to the bread hook in a few minutes, but we're going to keep the whisk on for that. And I'm going to let this all incorporate. You might need to stop it in the middle and use a silicone scraper in the bowl to kind of get the edges off. See, the flour is kind of sticking to the bowl there. So in a minute, I'm going to stop it and I'll get that all mixed in really well. Definitely does not have to be totally perfect. We just want to get everything incorporated before we add the balance of our flour. There, you can see it's starting to get a little bit of a dough consistency. Okay, at this point, if you're using your countertop mixer, you want to remove the whisk attachment and get all the good stuff off the bottom of it there. And we're going to switch to the bread hook attachment in the mixer. If you do not have a countertop mixer, you can just go ahead and continue to do this in a bowl with a whisk. You may want to switch over to a big fork, which is one thing we like to do when we're incorporating our bread when we're not using a mixer. This is just the balance of our flour that we had pre-measured before. Get it all in there. Scrape that off on the dough hook there, and we're going to let this incorporate with the dough hook until it forms a nice cohesive dough ball. Once the flour starts to get worked in a little bit, I will speed it up, but for now I don't want the flour flying all over the place.
Okay, so now we're going to knead our dough. You don't have to be afraid. It's actually quite simple, and I'll show you how. So I'm just going to lightly flour this board. Don't go crazy with the flour. Just try to evenly disperse it. Take off any rings or bracelets that would get in the way. The dough really cakes into the jewelry. So I'm just going to take this flexible scraper and plop it right onto our board. Okay. Now this is a little bit of a stickier dough, so when you first start, it might be a tiny bit sticky, and that's okay. I like to sprinkle just a little bit of flour on top, and it's already a little sticky. I'm going to use this bench scraper. Okay. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to dip my fingers in the flour, is you're going to fold it towards you a little bit, and then push it, and then turn it 90 degrees counterclockwise. So towards you, push it gently, and then turn it 90 degrees. And you're going to keep doing that until it starts, you'll kind of get a feel for it. You're maybe a minute or two, it's starting to almost stick. I'm going to add a little bit more flour. And after about a minute or two, you can put a little bit more pressure. And I'll show you a little trick so that you know that you've kneaded it enough. So I'm just going to do this maybe for about 4 or 5 minutes or so. And it already feels really good. It's not sticking really anymore, as you can see. You don't want to walk away when you're doing this. You want to pick it up, and you don't want the dough to actually sit on the board for too long. I'm just going to take this flour over. So again, towards you, push it away, turn it 90 degrees. And you're just going to keep doing that, and you'll get into a nice little rhythm, get a little exercise while you're at it, a good arm exercise. And it's actually, it has a beautiful texture and feel already. So when I think I'm done, you could do about 4 to 5 minutes. This is what you can do. So I like to turn it over. See how nice and smooth it is? And then you just take your finger, and it should spring back slowly after you touch it. So I'm just gonna indent it, and see how it springs back? Then we're done. Okay, so now we're gonna put this ball of dough that we've kneaded right into this bowl and let it sit in a warm place for about 2.5 hours. We're gonna cover it up with a tea towel. The first thing we like to do is just put in a tiny bit of our avocado oil or whatever neutral oil that you have in your kitchen. I know sometimes I use sunflower oil, anything that doesn't have a flavor. You don't want to use any strongly flavored oils. And then I'm just going to take a paper towel and rub the bottom of it. This is just so that the dough ball doesn't stick, and then it will release more easily. I'm just going to put a tiny bit more. Okay, so just wipe the inside of it like that, and then plop it right in. And then we're going to use a tea towel. We're going to cover it up, set it on your kitchen counter, or maybe, if you have a warm pantry or closet, a warm place, let it sit 2.5 hours for it to rise, and then we'll move on to the next step.
Okay, so we have a second batch of challah while the one that we just made is rising, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do next. So what you do after your challah has been proofing for about 2.5 hours is you're going to want to punch it down. This challah proofed all the way, it rose all the way to the top of the bowl, and at the end of 2.5 hours, when I saw that, I just punched it down. You can see the little mark there where my fist went into the dough. It's a very satisfying thing to do. And then you just let it rise for about another half an hour after you punch it down in it, and it'll end up looking like this. You can see the dough is very poofy, it feels very light, and we're ready to proceed with the recipe. We've talked before about these awesome bowl scrapers that you need to use whenever you're doing one of our bread recipes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the challah dough out of the bowl. It's gonna collapse a little as you get it out of here. Because it's a stickier dough, we're gonna just have a little bit of flour here on our pastry board so that it doesn't stick. We're gonna go ahead and just get that out of the bowl and onto the board. So this recipe, as we talked about, actually makes 2 full pans of the little challah rolls with dip. So we need to divide this in half. So I'm gonna use a stainless steel, this is just a board scraper, but it's also great for cutting dough. And I'm just gonna kind of estimate to start with what I think is half. This is where the scale is gonna come in handy again, because I wanna be relatively accurate with that. So I'm just gonna put a little on there so it doesn't stick on there, and I'm gonna weigh each half. So I see that this one is 612 grams. Let's see what this one is. This one is a lot lighter, it's 542. So I'm just gonna take a little corner off of this one, see if I can get them a little bit closer. So we're at 595 and 561. So you just kind of estimate that until you get them pretty close. It does not have to be perfect. You just want to kind of have it. Now we're very close. Okay. So the first one here that I'm not using, I'm going to stick it back in the bowl and put that off to the side. And here we are. This is the half that we're gonna work with. So I'm going to do a little folding it over there with the piece that I added in the middle. I'm just going to flip it over so that I have a nice ball there ready to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create 10 little tiny challah rolls that go around the edge of the dip that we're making. So we're going to use our scale again. And I think the easiest way to do this, I suppose there's lots of ways to do it, is I just take the dough ball and I cut it in half again. And I think the easiest thing to do here is just to use the scale to estimate. So the first half, we're at 289. The second half, we're at 302. So I might just take a little bit and put it over here. And whenever you add dough into the dough, I always just kind of fold it over so it reincorporates into itself while we're working. So Now we're much closer. Okay, so then each of these we're going to divide into 5 smaller pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come right back to you. Okay, so I'm here making our little dough balls that are going to go around the sides of our dip, and I just want to show you how I'm doing that. So I cut it into 10 pieces, and I just weighed them all. It does not have to be perfect. They just need to be pretty close because you want it to cook pretty uniformly. What I like to do is, because I've had to cut some pieces off and incorporate some pieces, I just kind of flip it over and pull and fold it over the top of that so that it incorporates those loose pieces. And then I just kind of roll it up the same way that you maybe did when you used to play with Play-Doh as a kid. So like here you can see what I'm talking about. Here I've had to incorporate some pieces just to get the pieces of equal weight. And I just kind of do a little pull and fold over to incorporate those pieces in the bottom. And then you see it makes a nice smooth surface on the top. And I can just roll that into a ball to use for our dip. And I'm almost done here. And I will come back and show you how we're going to place those in the pan. Okay, so we have our 10 little dough balls here. I've just taken a little olive oil. I'm just using this pretty pie dish. Since this is a dip that we're going to serve directly to our guests, we like to pick something that's attractive. You can do this in a cast iron skillet. You can do it in an 8 or 9 inch cake pan. It's really whatever your preference is, but this is what I like to use to do it. We just like to do it in something pretty. So I put a little olive oil in there just to keep the dough from sticking. And we're just going to take our little dough balls here and place them around the perimeter of this pie dish. And you're going to have to you want them to get kind of snuggled up close to each other there. And they should fit. These are going to fit just perfectly. Okay, so once you have that in there like that, I'm just going to take a clean dish towel the same way we did when we were proofing the challah itself. I'm going to cover it up and I'm going to put it in a warm place for about a half an hour and let the dough balls rise. Okay, while our little challah dough balls are rising, we're going to make the spinach and artichoke dip that's going to get cooked with our challah when we're ready to make our challah and spinach and artichoke dip. Okay. So here, I've already done this part of it. So this is 2 cans of artichoke hearts, just quartered artichoke hearts, and I've mixed in with that, and I've drained them obviously. I've mixed in with that about 5 ounces of frozen spinach. That's about half of the bag of frozen spinach that you can buy in the grocery store. And then I just drained that of all the water and kind of wrung it all out. You can chop that up really finely, or you can throw those things in the food processor. You can actually do this whole thing in the food processor, if you really want to. Next, you're going to add in 2/3 of a cup of good quality mayonnaise. This is 1 clove of minced garlic. This is a tablespoon of sherry cooking wine. This is a 1/2 cup. This is shredded Parmesan cheese. And this is a 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. This is egg for the egg wash on our challah, which we don't need yet. So then, this is super simple. We're just going to mix that all together. I really like to use the 2 different textures of Parmesan cheese because one of them kind of adds the flavor, the grated one, the smaller one, into the dip. The other one gets kind of creamy and cheesy, and you can see it'll sort of be stretchy when you pull on the dip with your pieces of challah. And that's it. It smells amazing. So if you like things spicy, you can also add some cayenne pepper to this. Sometimes I do that. I'm never quite sure when I'm making a dip for a lot of people how people feel about spice, but if it's just me and Rafi, we like spicy things, so we'd probably put the cayenne pepper in. And that's it. There's your dip.
Okay, so our ring of challah is done rising, and this is always a fun part to check. So let's take a look. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. The dough has risen. It's nice, and if you touch it, it should feel nice and pillowy from the yeast. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is put in our spinach and artichoke dip. Now, keep in mind, remember this recipe that we showed you in this video makes 2 of these. So this is actually for 2 recipes. So I'm only going to add half of this right in the middle of the ring of dough. So I'm just going to eyeball it about half, and I'm just going to go ahead and carefully spoon it right in the middle. And you don't want to go too crazy. It seems about good. Maybe I'll add maybe a tiny bit more. Okay. Next, so we just have an egg wash. We just beat one egg here. And I'm going to take a little silicone brush, and I'm going to go ahead and lightly brush the challah balls here carefully. I'm just going to go around, do all that. Okay, so I'm almost done here. I'm on the last segment of challah. Okay, now you don't have to put anything on top of it, but this is everything but the bagel sesame seasoning blend that we got at Trader Joe's. And I'm just going to lightly sprinkle all around. It's really pretty too. You have the different colors, the different textures. You don't have to go too crazy, but I like to make it look pretty. That looks good to me. And then we're going to take a little bit more of our shredded Parmesan, and I'm just going to put it right on top of the spinach dip right here in the middle. And that's going to melt and get gooey and delicious. And now we're going to place it in your preheated 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 22 minutes. Keep an eye on it, maybe once it gets to 18 minutes or so. And you want to bake it until the challah gets to be a nice golden brown color.
Okay, this is so beautiful. We've decided to only show you the dip and not our faces in this final part. It is gorgeous. It smells amazing, and we're going to give it a try. One thing is that you can definitely add a little more dip if you prefer in the middle. However you want to do it, it's personal preference. You can cut it. We usually just cut the first piece, and then after that, you can just rip it. So we're gonna share this. It just pops right out of there. So look at that.
Oh my gosh! Wait. The texture is amazing in this.
Okay, so that's what it looks like. Wow, it's really hot because we were not going to mess around with this. We're gonna taste it here in the dip. So you just take it, dig right in like that. It's delicious. So this is a really special appetizer to serve. It's awesome for a Super Bowl party. The Super Bowl is coming up, for game day. If you're having friends for a cocktail party, it's super easy. Everything's in one pan. And while it may seem high maintenance to make the challah for this dip, it is well worth it. It is absolutely delicious. Also, you can serve other dips to the side of this because you do have plenty of bread here. So you can have the warm bread with this dip, but you could also have other dips off to the side, right?
We like to make buffalo chicken dip as well. Who doesn't love that, right?
Delicious, yeah.
That'd be a perfect addition to this.
Any other dip you want with it. But frankly, this is so delicious, you could just eat this on its own. Would you like another piece?
Of course. I'm not going to say no.
So we hope you love this recipe as much as we do. Give us a comment if you try it. It's one of our favorite current appetizer recipes, and we're definitely both making it for the Super Bowl this year.
We'll see you guys next time.
Take it easy.